Welcome back to Sexy Marriage Radio, alongside my wife, Pam, each and every week. We're going where the nation wants to go. And you know how they let us know where they want to go?
Let me guess. Emails, calls.
Yes, 214-702-9565 or feedback at sexymarriageradio.com is how we get content to help speak directly to whatever may be going on in the nation's marriages, families, life, thought processes, actions, what have you. And so we're going to jump right in. This is an email that just came in. We're going to, entitled From the Concerned Wife, that she just emailed in right after last week's episode. So how on earth do I get my husband motivated to get healthy so that we can have sex again? He said his chest hurts when we have sex. So he had his heart checked and it all is good, checked out fine. He's just so out of shape that the physical exertion of sex hurts him, he says. Do you have any advice? Do you think there's anything I can do to help him? Thanks for all that you do, concerned wife.
Wow, that's interesting.
What jumps out to you on being interesting in that regard?
Well, I mean, concerning the wording that she uses, I wonder if that's his wording, that the physical exertion of sex hurts him. Heart checks out. Obviously, medical issues are the first concern.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of, what does hurt mean? How does it hurt you?
Yeah.
So lots of questions here I'm sure you're going to dive into. But
yeah, and
that was my first thing of, wow, it hurts me. That's painful for her. If he's in that kind of shape that
relationally, it's painful. Individually, it's painful for each of them. It probably plays out differently for each of them and how the pain manifests and impacts. But it is a dynamic that we're going to use this email today in the regular version to dive into the specifics of this, but it's applicable to almost any situation where we have, how do I help my spouse change something because of the impact and how it's impacting me?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a motivation we all can have. I'll own that. I can have seasons and times where it's like, how do I get you to change? Because I don't like what's going on with you and how it impacts me. I mean, that's kind of what there's an undercurrent of that in a lot of our lives. Oh,
geez, that's the reality of life. Like if I'm at work, another person who's not pulling their weight affects me because I'm picking up their weight.
Right. So how do I get them to change and have an impact because I don't like the impact on me? And then the extended content today, which is deeper, longer. There's no ads. You can subscribe at smr.fm/academy. We're going to go kind of global, building off of this with what are some specific questions we need to be asking ourselves as it pertains to how am I doing this? How do I get more aware of the ways in which I do this very thing? And then what do I do about it? So all that's coming up right after this. So let's just jump right in, because this is something that if I think about it throughout the life of Sexy Marriage Radio, this has been a undercurrent through a lot of the emails and conversations and interactions with people in the nation. Is our first inclining about pain points in marriage is, what's my spouse doing that's creating this? And what do I need to do about it? Right. And so here it's pretty blatant and specific of, it hurts for me to have sex. And so therefore I'm not interested in having sex, which is logical.
In one regard, if you're just looking at that statement, yes.
But on the other side of the equation is that impact still has some pretty serious landing.
Well, it has impact on her. I mean, it's disappointing for him in that, what are you going to do about it, right? Are you just going to accept that, yeah, it hurts when we have sex, so I'm just not going to do it. Right. I'm not going to address the problem.
Right.
And we can all see, I'm assuming we can all see that that's just a really sad statement, right? If there's something clearly I could do, potentially based on the data that we have in the email, I could get myself in shape.
Yes. And this is where it's so interesting, because it gets multi-layered, right? Because you think about some of the different issues that we have in our life. The root of it for me, if I'm the husband in this equation, the root of it for me on my physical shape or my outlook on life or my outlook on my sexuality or however it could be is going to be completely different, most likely, than how it impacts you and then what that creates in you, right? Because there's something deeper seated oftentimes when I have areas that I know are important to focus on, but I just don't do it. Because if you think of the world in which we live in, I think every single human being understands on an objective, just cognitive level, my health matters. Taking care of myself matters. Watching out for my fitness matters. It's important, right? I mean, Michael Easter, the author of The Comfort Crisis, I think we may have mentioned this before. He has his mission after the book went so viral and well received was he's created a 2% mission, and it's based on a research that was done of 100% of us know that exercise and taking the stairs and everything is good. It's important. But only 2% of the population was found to take the stairs when there was an escalator or an elevator readily accessible beside it.
Yeah.
And so it's just that idea of how do I know I need to, but so few actually do.
Yeah. Take the stairs.
And that plays out in so many areas of our life. I know that sex is important in my marriage because I went into it likely with a thought process of, yeah, this will be great. And then when I get into it and I find out it's not all I thought it was going to be, or it manifests itself as pain, anxiety, frustration, hurt, whatever, then it's like, whatever. And I'll live with the impact of that rather than face what the fear or the real concern is in me first. And so this is where we got to get into the conversation we'll have is not just about fitness or sex. It's about what do we owe ourselves and each other in life and in marriage. Okay. Because what does it actually mean if I'm going to help somebody change when what it is beyond my control?
Well, yeah, I say I'm going to help someone change, but I can't help someone do something they don't want to do.
Right. But I'm not going to encourage anybody to just ignore that fact though, because it still has impact.
Yeah. You can absolutely share that impact with your spouse, and then it's off to the races. And what do you do from there?
Right. And so this is a quote from author Bruce Tift that I've come across recently. He's in the differentiation model and same kind of club, if you will, but trying to fix another is usually a way of avoiding our own discomfort. How does that land as you're thinking about the way we're starting this conversation?
Well, I mean, trying to fix another, is what I'm doing or wanting to do actually a fix? I mean, I don't know that that one necessarily applies here. Maybe it does.
Okay. That's interesting.
What I view as a fix for someone may be a totally skewed point of view. I may be looking for a wrong fix.
It's based off of the conversation we're starting with of she's motivated by the impact of everything. So she's trying to fix something because of that impact. But it's also motivated for her by her not really maybe cleanly facing what is my real choice here? What are my real options here? If he's clearly stating something by his inactivity or his uninterest in actually facing his own physical self, his own sexual self, and being honest about that, what does that actually mean to her then? If you extrapolate this out even further, if this is something he flat out refuses to address, meaning sex is off the table then in their marriage, what does she want to do about it? What does that leave her? What does she do with that?
Sure.
Right. We get to these thoughts sometimes when I'm in the dark nights of the soul, and I start really panicking of what if it's this, what if it's this, what if it's this? But I'm not really, oftentimes I'm glossing over all of that with much more emotion than actually objectively, what if that is? What do I do about that?
Yeah. Well, she's got to look at that really, but I look at back to the English, the wording of that statement. What is it that needs to be fixed here with him, right? Is it really just a physical exertion thing and being out of shape? Is it his anxiety around sex causing chest pains? We had those anxious moments where the chest just tightens up and
totally,
and it's just anxiety and it's not really about what shape I'm in. It's my mental state.
I'd be curious about the history of their sex life. If I was working with him, I would want to know, okay, when did this start really showing up? Particularly for him, if he's had any kind of sexual history with because I don't know what their background is or anything like that. But if there's an element of, when we were first married, it wasn't an issue. And then as can tend to happen in married life, we get a little more comfortable with ourselves. We allow things to kind of, we're not always on our best as far as how we're taking care of ourselves, because it's like, I got her. I got him. It's good. I can eat this extra cake and all these things. It does still impact us then. And then did it start showing up, or what's the arc of that story?
Sure.
Because that matters. Because if it's anxiety based, which that's where I most often land. Like if I get a couple like this that's actually sitting in my office and they bring up something on that's physically manifesting itself, one of the first questions I'll ask is, okay, have you checked the medical route?
Right. Have you gone to see a medical doctor?
Do you have a cardiologist involved? Have you done the stress tests? Have you had the scans? Have you, what's your EKG look like? That kind of stuff, just because you want to make sure the physical aspect is a important factor in this thing. But once you get that out of the equation, now you know a route of, okay, that's it. That's part of it. Let's do it. But then there's still always, always, always a big component of anxiety-based something.
Yeah.
Because you are spot on, Pam, that anxiety manifests itself in our bodies in such sophisticated ways. And oftentimes it's in the chest. Well, tightness of chest.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in the ER for that before, and it was all anxiety. Spent $2,000 on an ER visit for that. Darn it. Thank goodness it was just anxiety.
But it is one of those that, okay, so if that's the equation, and now you're starting to get into where it's not just about how am I taking care of myself physically, it's also what am I doing emotionally? What am I doing mentally? How am I facing life better in the circumstances in which it is? Because this is where, just a quick aside on a personal note, we're in a stage of life as empty nesters now. And physically speaking, I'm getting in better shape than I've been in a long time, but there's a stress level that I've got that I haven't had in a while. And that's kind of thrown, because I track all that data, you know this, with my watch, and
oh my gosh,
I keep track of a bunch of things on how's my sleep, how's my
you
VO2 max, how's my heart rate variability, all those things. And my heart rate variability is down, way down from what it's been, and which is usually equated to stress. But I don't necessarily feel it, but it's showing up. And to me, what matters is I want to just start being curious about, what could that be? How do I need to, what am I not taking care of maybe that I need to be better? Because this is just overall health for me. But it's looking at it as an equation of, there's always ways to realize our body's telling us things. But then what do I need to do about it, rather than do I just avoid it because of what it's told me?
Right. Okay. So for them, are we honing in on where we're going?
Well, for them, if his body's telling him something, well, does he just take that as, well, that's just what it is? Or does he have the courage to actually face what it's telling him that can still be addressed in a variety of different ways, because the impact still matters? And then for her, she needs to get, she's really faced with, how does she live honestly with someone who has stopped showing up in an area of the marriage? How does she live honestly with herself in that equation?
Well, and it sounds like stop showing up potentially in a couple areas, not having sex.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see that, well, to your point just now, you said, well, she's wanting him to do exactly what you just said, address this issue, right?
Well, that's what he's being faced with.
That's what he's faced with, and that's what she's hoping to motivate him to do.
So this is where you try to separate it out on, look at this on life terms, or I also like to use the marriage on marriage life terms. That if I'm in the situation like he's in, where the impact of our sex life is because it is felt because of something going on with me and my unwillingness largely to face it. So then I'm faced with, either I confront myself and whatever that is in me, or I confront the impact of the marriage because of what I do or don't do. Which one's greater? Which one wins out? Because basically, if I say,
or
I'm okay,
the impact of no matter what you do, right? Are you talking about her telling him?
No, I'm using him.
Here's the impact on me of what you're
eventually
choosing.
That's what she's going to need to do.
Okay.
Because and there's better ways to say this, and that's how we'll pivot this in just a second. But just to get a global view of this is to realize when we can boil it down, if I'm him, if I'm the husband in this situation, and you're the one that emailed into our show, which is kind of weird that we're emailing ourselves here, and you're saying, this is what's going on, and he refuses to do this. So how do I help motivate him? Well, the nature of what we're facing is I'm left with this dilemma of I face myself or I face our marriage. And if I don't want to, if I don't,
can't face both.
well, but here's the thing though. If I'm unwilling to face myself, I'm basically saying I'm okay with the impact.
Repeat that.
If I'm unwilling to actually address what's going on with me in this, what the situation is that says I want to have sex, or but it just hurt, because we all do these different things where we hope I can pawn off my spouse from things that they really want. I come up with excuses and I come up with half answers. But what the reality of it is if I am unwilling to address this part of my life, I am saying, I don't care how it impacts you and our marriage, or I'm willing to at least live with that more than I am living with what do I need? What am I being tasked with to have to face myself? And then on her, she's got the same equation of how's the impact of this? And then she needs to look at it as how am I addressing just the impact? Because it's so easy for us to get caught in this. Let me fix it. Let me be a motivator. I'll be reactive and emotional about it. How come you can't? And all these kinds of phraseologies, rather than how do I do it in a honest way that just is something more along the lines, I miss feeling your body in this aspect of our marriage. And I'm scared about the possibility of not having that. That's a different phrase rather than, can't we ever, because think about it, most of the time when we address these different things that are beyond our control, we usually are a little off balance in how we do it.
Sure. We got emotions tied to it. I think it's pretty natural to throw those in there because you're so frustrated.
So in essence, she then, if he has anxiety when it comes to, and I'm going out on a hypothesis here, if he has anxiety when it comes to the aspects of having sex with his wife, she can have anxiety when it comes to aspects of having to address this issue. And so she doesn't then settle her own self down to address it well. She comes at it anxiously, which is often reactive, accusatory, shots fired, undercurrent statements. And this is where, to do this cleanly for her, she has to make sure she can maintain honest assessments without bringing up old maps and deal with the impact only. Think of how many times we try to deal with something. It's like you bring up, hey, I'm sorry I did that. And I'm like, hey, I appreciate, thank you for the acknowledgement of it. Rather than I could also, if I'm a little off balance, yeah, I'm so glad because this also happened too. And then this, and then this, and then this. And now I'm just tacking on all these other shots rather than, why don't I just deal with what's right in front of us in that moment only?
Sure.
And this is just realizing when we really want to face something that's beyond our control, we way too often get out of our lane completely. I deal with me somewhat, but then I get into, well, let's do this. And you come up with this whole big plan because she's the higher desire for having sex in their marriage is what it sounds like.
That would absolutely be the assumption
She's the
based
higher
on the
desire
email.
for overall health and well-being, most likely. I'm making that assumption too. But it's realizing, okay, if I want somebody to really take care of themselves, am I doing it too?
Well, I think that's a good point to make, because it's possible I'm not taking care of myself. I just don't have the repercussions of choosing not to have sex because it hurts her chest or whatever. And so looking at, what are my actions? Am I taking care of myself as well? Because lots of times we lead by example.
And our spouse has a map. And so they can easily see, am I living by what I say or I'm not?
Well, they have a map, meaning, I think you're meaning they have a map of me.
Right.
You have a map of me and how I normally act, what our history is. We may have people listening for the first time, so they're not necessarily familiar with what you're saying.
Fair.
They have a map.
Right.
So we map each other and the typical road that we would expect you to go down in a given situation.
Yeah, and this is what's so interesting is because when I'm off balance and I'm emotional about things because of my frustration, I don't realize I'm not, at times I'm sending mixed messages because I'm incongruent with what I'm saying I want to. Like I just think of just the idea of I want to live in a certain manner and I can try to impress that upon you
with words.
for health or whatever. Yeah, with suggestions and ideas and plans and whatever. Let's do this together, and it's all these things that I'm trying to motivate my spouse. But then I get caught in the situations where I'm sitting here saying I want to be very careful about watching what I eat. That's I'm on this path, and then I go back and get dark chocolate regularly, and you're watching that going, see, he there's a part of our brain that's watching that going, okay. And hopefully now he's probably regressed. That's probably what that is in some ways. But it's like, okay, what am I supposed to believe? He's sitting here saying this is so important, but he's living in a manner that's kind of counter to what he's saying is important. Just little slips are in there. And so I'm curious what she does in the way she wants to go after things with him. Because it's real easy to keep your focus on him, that you don't realize what you're presenting has holes too, has blind spots, has elements of I'm not completely as congruent as I could be, because this is not 100% of perfection.
Sure. None of us are going to be perfect, but it is important to look at, am I living according to what I would say is integrity and the manner that I want to live and what I'm saying I want to live? Because if I start talking and wanting someone else to do something or try and bring them along with me, if I've not been living according to what I say I want to live by, it makes it hard to follow.
Yeah. And then it takes away the stance I'm making too. And that's where that can be held against me. And I'm not even realizing that's the case. That's, if I take that out to an extreme, let's do this in this segment. If I take that out to an extreme, this is that idea of I'm trying to encourage you to come along and do something with me. Hey, let's go to a game this weekend. And you're like, no. And I'm like, but I really want to go. It'll be so much fun. And you're like, no. And then I finally, well, fine. And then I won't go either. I'm saying it's important. I'm saying it's something I want to do. And then if you won't buy in, then I just lose all my ground and just give it all up. Right?
Yeah.
If I go to an extreme, well, we do this a lot, not always to that extreme.
Yeah.
But I don't hold firm with what matters.
So if I really want to go, okay, if you don't want to go, I'll see you later.
I'll see you when the game's
going.
over. Right. And so there's this element, and I know already people will hear feedback at sexymarriageradio.com. Yeah, but sex is one of those things you can't outsource. It's true. I completely agree.
Yeah, but how you do life is how you do sex, right? If I want to live by integrity, just because sex doesn't equate 100% to this, potentially this topic, no, I can't outsource it, doesn't mean I can't still in other aspects of my life live according to that and set a good example and say, you know what? Great. Stay home. I'm going to go to the game. I really love high school football on Friday nights. I'm going to go to that. And I'm going to have a fun time. If you ever want to join me, come join me.
Please do. We'd love to have you be a part of this.
If you have something you want to do, bring it up.
Right.
Because I don't have to go to every game. Yeah, I don't know. Things like that.
And so if I look at it then, if we look at this, love in a marriage isn't about helping somebody feel good. Okay. We got to be clear about that. Because sometimes it's love in a marriage actually is me standing on honestly about the things that the relationship needs as I see, but also realizing I may not get entirely what I'm wanting in my relationship. That's an impracticality. But it doesn't mean I just let things slide that are important to me in a marriage. And I bring that out in the open more to realize she's facing, I don't like where this is heading. And I can't motivate you to join me, maybe in the full manner I want, but I'm also not going to sit idly by and just swallow where this is heading without doing something about it. And being honest with herself about that brings a completely different weight to the severity and the importance of this. And then you be careful about, okay, I'm not holding you hostage for it. I'm not adding requirements on it. I'm just making sure I maintain what matters. And in time, I'll know this matters or it doesn't. That's how you get the systemic shift that's different. Because most of the time we do these behavioral shifts is what we're looking for. I just want the behavior, where you have to get it down to a belief shift in the system, which is the idea of I'm going to live by this because this is what matters to me. I'm going to live more vibrantly because this is what matters to me. And I want you to join. I want this with you.
But she's got to do that within. She can't create a belief in someone else.
Correct. She has to live her belief, and that's how it impacts the relationship, because then it's a better weight on him of what really matters.
So what does that actually look like? I mean, it feels like more talking theory as opposed to a actual
okay, so
here's something you can do.
From the information,
I want something to say.
From the information she's given us thus far, it would be something along the lines of, I miss the sexual connection we have. And I realize it has impact on, the reason why the connection's not there. I realize what it is for you, but I miss it. And it scares me to think about the prospects of not having it. That's a better phrase. Because oftentimes that can be more likely going to elicit at some point, well, what are you going to do about that? I don't know what I want to do about being what that fear is yet, but I'm not going to act like it's not there. And you don't tack on anything else of, if you would just.
Yeah, she doesn't have to have that figured out.
No. Well, but she's being clean with how it's impacting correct,
her.
because too often then we keep going with that kind of a move by adding in, here's what I need you to do for me. Rather than, no, I'm just going to face what's going on right now better. Which then most oftentimes in my counseling experience elicits a response from the other spouse going, they get a little panicked. Well, what does that mean? Because they know the severity of what it is.
Yeah.
Deep down, they know it's a problem.
Yeah, they're not oblivious.
Blind to the problem that my spouse is frustrated with something I'm not doing or doing. We know. I just don't have the courage enough to actually face myself yet.
Yet being the key word.
Sometimes it takes a spouse willing to stand on truth as they see it to create that possibility of critical mass, so that I have to. And that's all she can do. Because then if he does, now all of a sudden you have a completely different system in which there could be a collaboration that looks completely different, more like what she was hoping, but it won't have the same fundamentals in it. It would be, well, because then he could actually come to her with a genuine, I really want to try to eat healthy. Will you help me with getting some meals together for the day? Or will you help me? Because, think about the lifestyles we all live. That sometimes it's real easy to eat better when I'm at home, but man, when I'm out, junk food is so easy to get. And so it takes a lot more prep.
And something like that, it's not just about prep. It's about, if it's spouses at home and a family, how does the whole family eat? And so it is a cleaner process and easier process when you have an issue like that, to do it as a family unit.
But that's where then it's as simple as, and this is just a little mental relational device you can use, if you will, where when I want to offer a thought and it's unsolicited, just by me merely adding in, hey, can I make an observation statement, disrupts the dialogue to where the brain, if I say, yes, I'd love to hear your observation, the brain will hear it differently, as opposed to if I just offer up something without having a disruption. Because oftentimes our relational pattern is a dynamic of, well, you're just trying to fix me. You're fixing a problem and I wasn't even asking. But just that little disruption changes how it lands in our brains. And this is the same thing systemically. The disruption of me actually showing up better is a big disruption in a system. When I just do that, and then I see what the next one is. Because her doing that also means she's going to have to ask herself some pretty serious questions too, which we're going to pivot to a little deeper, that we can also expand to everybody in the extended content.